Yeah, okay, so I hit the wrong button there. Yeah, I should hit the top, hit the bottom button. So I started the music over again, and I was already dancing, so didn't want to listen to it again. Hey, everybody, welcome to Sales Chatter, the podcast that we actually record live to help 10,000 sales reps generate over $1 million GP in under 12 months. Today, we've got a very special guest, dear friend of mine, that we're going to talk about scheduling, because as we progress into a high performer, a schedule, a planner, how we work our day and what we do in our day matters. And if we look at some of the greatest producers of our time, some of the greatest companies of our time, these companies and producers are scheduled to the T. I mean, they know what they're doing. They know when they're traveling. They know when they're doing everything. Most of the companies out there that are real hardcore high performers, they know their schedule for advertising, for specials, a yearly schedule beforehand. They know when their market drops, so when they have to produce more ads or put on a special or do, like, the McDonald's, what do they do? The Monopoly or the roll through him to win at Tim's. So this is all about scheduling. And as a high performer, you really got to schedule your day in those golden hours. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my dear friend on, John Brewer. You've probably seen him on LinkedIn. If you haven't seen him, you got to follow the man. He posts some very, very good stuff. John, thanks for joining me again today, buddy. Really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on, Dan. It's always fun chatting with you.
Yeah, it's a great time, brother. And we were chatting off air. Before we get going, just share with the audience who you are, what you do, so they can get a sense of where this conversation is going to go, and then we'll dive into it, pal.
All right, sounds good. My name is John Brewer, as he mentioned. I am the Director of Distribution and Logistics for CKE Restaurants. CKE Restaurants owns both the Carl's Jr. and Hardee's brands, and I am responsible for the U.S. distribution and logistics of both brands.
So we're talking a schedule of beyond schedules for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. So what I want to do is I want to make this super valuable, because every Tuesday we tend to bring on customers and talk about different topics. I often operate with every phone call or every email when it comes to my prospecting, John, where I act as if you're writing the information down. So when I say that, you say, you know what, Dan, why don't you call me in 3 weeks? And today being a Tuesday, I actually act as if you're writing down like 3W, Dan, and you put it in your calendar. And the reason I act like that is because if I'm prospecting you to hopefully get your business one day, or be able to be a part of your network one day, and I can't even follow a schedule that you've asked me to follow up on, to me, that's kind of like a red flag immediately. And I've spoken to some people, and they say, yeah, I don't really do that. I don't, if you call me back, you call me back. I get so many calls. But for me, it's that being able to, one of my favorite sayings is, what you do screams so loud I can't hear a word you say. And it's all about what we do as individuals and high performers, as opposed to what we say we're going to do. Does that kind of ring true for you when you get phone calls, or when you're looking at people coming and prospecting with you? Do you ever jot down their name or anything and say, hey, it was a pretty good conversation. I'm wondering if they're going to call me back?
I usually don't on that, but you did touch on something that I want to kind of elaborate, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
They say if you're faithful in the little things, you'll be faithful in the big ones, i.e. such as calling me back in 3 weeks when I ask you to. I use that as well, just in different, kind of in my different screening Obviously, I cannot return, I can't talk to everybody. Otherwise, I'll be
Yes.
working additional 20, 25 hours a week, and
Yes.
nobody would like me if I did that. So, um, I'm looking for certain character traits, kind of like you mentioned your red flags. I've got kind of a quasi screening process. It's not it's not professional or anything like that. It's
Mhm.
just kind of the John Brewer learn as you go kind of deal. So, one of the things that I will task a rep with, it's either asking them to call me back, like you said, in 3 weeks, and if they do, then that's fine. Another thing is I'll ask them to like do their homework, and I've kind of it's not really a game because it has some human behavioral characteristics to it.
Yeah.
But one of the questions I ask is, tell me something about my company that I don't know.
Oh, great question.
and
Oh,
and and it's kind of entertaining to see what comes back, but it's also a telltale sign. You'll get some folks that'll just sit there and just try to uh, kind of BS their way through it, and you can see that that's obviously something you don't want. You get somebody who just doesn't do it at all. Well, that's again like your 3 week call thing. It's something that you don't, if they're not gonna do their homework, then do you really want them moving your freight? And I'm
I
kind of
love
like
that.
I'm kind of like a recruiter in the fact, you hear recruiters talk and they've got about, a minute or less to review a resume just because of the sheer volume of resumes coming in. I'm doing the same thing. I take a 2 3 minute screen of it. If it looks like it's a fit, then I'll carve out some time with them. If not, if they're totally, I had a guy today said he specialized in automotive logistics, which is great, except I don't do anything with automotive logistics. So probably not going to be a fit. And my time is probably not well served talking to this gentleman.
So, do you think that was more of a template than anything that just went out to a mass group of
It,
people, or goes out? Because, like, CKE Restaurants is the name of the company, and you got an automotive. It's kind of like some of those messages you get on LinkedIn, where I know it's created by like Duck Soup or something, and they're using some software system just to send me because they're asking me about stuff that
it's
is
kind of
not even anywhere close to my corporate profile or anything.
it's kind of a spray and pray.
Yes, I love where you, and then you get pitch slapped from all angles
I
of it.
get I
I
get
love
pitch
the way you,
I get pitch slapped so much I actually wrote a song about it. So
yeah, I know. I know. I love that. One one thing I do love is what I read between the lines on some of the things you say, and you're actually qualifying the supplier to prospect you, and I believe in qualifying the customer, the prospect, to continue talking to them. So
absolutely,
there's almost like this duality of qualification coming in, because for you to say things like, okay, tell me something about my business I don't know. And one, if they don't, perfect, you just eliminated them from the conversation. So that's freed up an extra 2 minutes of your week to talk to this person. Two, if they come up with something that is like literally a single Google search away, and you've probably throughout the years seen what that is, then that's kind of another red flag that they're going to do the least amount possible to get the job done.
right.
Probably not the kind of person you want. So I love that with one question, you're actually qualifying the supplier to work with you, because
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
don't
Well,
hear.
I mean, and to your point, it is on both sides, and time is a an expensive commodity on both sides.
Mm,
So you're limited in what you can do. So you want to make every minute count, and it's so
yes.
your sales reps are vetting their customers. Absolutely, 100% they should.
Yeah.
Same way I should vet my carriers and my brokers.
Mhm.
So that if I find a partner that's solid, that'll do their homework, that takes care of the details, uh, then I'm going to try to work with them and see if we can't do some business.
See, so let me let's dive into another aspect that kind of dovetails off of that. Um, you have your daily schedule, things that
Right.
you must complete. You have projects, you have upcoming projects, you have mandates, you have goals you got to hit. And then you have all these other people inbound calling you at a time that's kind of either convenient or scheduled for them, not necessarily in your schedule. So how do you handle all of that? And how do you schedule your day? And then let's talk about your week and month. But
Okay.
let's actually go to the forward. Let's talk about the month first. Do you ever look at your months, or in your meetings, you kind of have a quarter objective and you break that down? Like, can you just give the audience a deep understanding of how you schedule your time for maximum output?
That's a really good question. Monthly, we do have recurring meetings. Obviously, project work. Um, we do have goals, so we have to kind of schedule those deadlines. I typically will not glance monthly a lot because that is always subject to change. I
Yeah.
think you of all people would know that based on our LinkedIn conversation yesterday. Uh,
Yes, yes, yes.
so sometimes with me it's just a matter of managing deadlines. You put the fires out that are closest first, and then you just keep working. Sure, by the end of it all, a month has passed and you've accomplished what you needed to accomplish. But I really don't look at big bits of time like that. Because it literally can change on a moment's notice. I mean, whether it's an internal meeting or project, or an external such as you and me, it literally can change. I mean, I've had meetings dropped on me that were like an hour before. So,
Yeah, yeah,
um, and that happens, and you wish it wouldn't, but it does. So, if you want to kind of gravitate a little bit more towards weekly,
yeah.
weekly is a little bit better bite for me.
No, sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, Jen. So you'll have a goal 3 months out. Like they'll say this quarter, this is the goal for the end of the quarter. But you're not going to set that 3 month schedule. You're going to kind of look at it daily and weekly, but understanding that this is the end goal, correct?
Right,
Okay, I
exactly.
just wanted to clarify for
It's
everybody.
it's
Okay, so
it's
yeah,
long
okay.
term, short term. Uh,
Yes,
you
oh, I
know,
like that.
and you deal with the short term first. It's like I said, the closest fire is burning first, with a look towards the horizon, if you will, when a project's got to be completed. And then
Okay.
you keep moving. A lot of the project work I do it's not what you would call a light switch or a turnkey. It's something that takes a pretty fair amount of time over the length of a year or 6 months, just because the projects are just big. Okay,
Yes.
so even though I'm
And do you
not
ever
looking,
break those projects down into small
yes,
chunks?
I was
Yeah.
fixing
Okay.
to as you're reading my mind. Um, so I'll break that down into bites because you eat the elephant one bite at a time, and I've
Mhm.
eaten a lot of elephants in my life, so my gut shows it. Sorry, but
That's okay. That's
you,
just a pure shape of love, brother.
yeah,
I like
yeah,
to say
that's it.
when I was 200 pounds, I used to say, I'm 200 pounds of love, baby. That's all there is to it.
But yeah,
Yeah.
you break it down into smaller bites,
Yeah.
and that does a bunch of different things. Number one, if you take a look at the big project in itself, or the elephant, if you will, you can be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You can also be defeated because you look at it and say, "There's no way in the world we're going to get this done in 6 months." So if you break it down into little bite size, you can actually celebrate the milestones all the way to the end, and that gives you the momentum to go to the next milestone and keep going and building that momentum till you get to the finish line. So
I
a lot of
love
good
that.
reasons for doing that.
I love that. So I love the short term, long term with a look towards the horizon,
Right.
right? So this is the long term goal, but you're right. The fires that are closer to you need to go out before you extend in, because if you jump into the middle, now you got things coming from every angle and you're overwhelmed,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
I love that analogy. That's awesome. Do you ever have anything in your week, whether that be free time for John during the day, where you just 20 minutes, 30 minutes, where it's like nobody bother me, that does not move?
Nothing firmly set, but I do take breaks in between the day. I do make sure I go out for lunch every day,
Okay. Yep.
but because you can get burned out sitting in a desk eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich
Yep.
every day.
So even if you bring a lunch from home, you just get outside, you do something, you just reset.
Right? Yeah, it's I call it getting ready for round two. Round two is the
Ah,
afternoon, and you've gone through round one. You've done everything you needed to do. You've attacked. You put the fires out. Then you go and get a change of scenery, whether it be a restaurant or we got some parks around the office, just to change. To decompress for just a minute, catch your breath, and get ready for the next round too, like I said. And then you come back in, you jump on the merry-go-round that's going 100 miles an hour and finish out the day.
Grab that G-force and get a ripper in. I love that.
Exactly.
I think that's I'm often I'm that guy that kind of looks at my schedule on a Sunday, and based on that, I look and I say, okay, well, 2 months ago when I planned, or a month ago when I planned this meeting on Thursday, it was important, but it's not really important right now. So I'm going to have to move it because other things have come up. Right. And it goes back to your point where you said, Dan, I don't schedule months out because it's so dynamic a schedule. And so more often than not, I'm starting to say, if somebody says, okay, well, why don't we touch base in a month? I'll say, okay, well, why don't you connect with me in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks to schedule that next call a month from now.
Right.
And not that I want to waste more time on a phone call. It's just what I've found since I've started to get healthier and dive into different projects is like when I first got back into, after I was sick, I had all this time because like my schedule was empty. And it was actually scary because I felt like I was procrastinating. I felt unproductive because I'm always been a schedule guy. For me, if it's not written down, it's like I just keep working on what I'm doing, and all of a sudden I realize, oh my gosh, I should have called John an hour ago because I didn't put it in my schedule, right? Or I didn't set reminders. And so what I felt like I was doing is, as the time went from like all the time in the world during the golden hours, because for 9 months I had zero planned except getting better, or 10, 11 months, all of a sudden I felt it did this very quick, where it's like these finite windows, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just totally missed a phone call with somebody because I didn't write it down. So what I did is I started trying not to plan 2-3 months out and saying, like, listen, it's not that I want to blow you off. It's just typically if I plan something a month out, and this is the transparency part of it, right? Is if I plan something a month out, I am going to change it. It's just what I see happening. So why don't you connect with me in like 3 weeks? Not that I want to blow you off, because I'm interested in what you have to say and what you want to show me, but let's connect in 3 weeks, and then we'll schedule kind of a plan for next week. And then that way I look at my next week's schedule and I'm like, okay, I can move this, or I can change, or listen, everything's solid. These are the only times I have. Can you make that work? If not, let's plan it for the week after. And I've found that for lack of a better term, I guess I owe people less, because I feel like, and love your thoughts on this, because I feel like when I miss an appointment, I owe somebody, because I've given my word that we scheduled it in here, and because of my lack of scheduling or my forgetfulness, I owe you at this point. Do you feel the same way? If you like set a meeting with a sales rep, and you have it in your calendar, and something comes up and you have to be gone for it, do you have that kind of personal feeling, or is it more of, okay, well, it's business, we'll figure it out when we do?
Well, there's two situations. If the rep is local, I have a lot more flexibility, obviously. But if I know for a fact that somebody's traveling in, say a rep coming out of Chicago down here specifically to meet with me, that meeting gets held at all cost.
Yes, 100%.
It's out of respect for the other company's travel budget or travel expense. So I don't blow those meetings off. I've heard people who do, but it would have to be, I'd have to be in the hospital to blow it off, because I respect their time and I respect their company's expenses, because those are two important things to me. So local reps, a little bit more flexibility. I will tell you this, and this is probably just me. Typically, if somebody reaches out to me, say Wednesday, say tomorrow, I'm not going to schedule, even if they're local, I'm not going to schedule a meeting with them this week. I will tell them to reach out to me on Monday, and we'll carve out some time
for next week.
So, because by Wednesday, either everything's booked, or it's a lot of meetings and I got a lot of project work. So I really don't want to add too much to the week that's already been built, because as you know, the closer you get to the weeks, the more they fill up, right? So by Wednesday, I'm usually like, yeah, call me Monday.
That's actually booked. I'm just writing all this down. That's actually a great point for a lot of sales reps listening. Is you know the prospecting is different Monday to Wednesday than it is Wednesday to Friday. Right?
Absolutely.
Monday to Wednesday, it's do you have any time this week for maybe a phone call, 20-minute phone call? Wednesday to Friday might be, you know what, your schedule is probably booked this week. Do you have any time next week?
Right. Yeah. You usually by the second half of the week, you're trying to get whatever you planned completed, or at least that's what I'm trying to do. Because when I leave Friday, I want all the tasks that I slated for the week complete. That's a real good
And
week for me.
tasks. Yes, that's awesome. That's awesome information. So, how do you map out your schedule? Do you put 45-minute blocks, hour blocks, 2-hour blocks, as long as it takes? How do you work your day? Let's bring it. Let's really like narrow in the focus to our day.
Okay. Um, Typically, if I'm meeting a rep, it's a 30-minute block. If I know
Okay.
the rep, it could be 45 to an hour, depending on if we're doing a project together or something like that, then it would be as long as it takes.
Okay.
Um, I've got a project I'm working on right now with a vendor, and we've spent 3 and 4 hour blocks at their office mapping it out on whiteboard and building this Frankenstein of a beast of a project. So that's usually how I roll it out. If it's a new rep and I don't really know them and they've kind of passed the John Brewer screening session
Yep.
process,
The
um,
JB screening test.
I'll give them 30 minutes. And in fact, that's the reward for answering the question. Is I'll give you 30 minutes of time if you tell me something I don't know about my company.
Very good way to put it. Okay. Yep.
So that way, it's not like I'm just asking a question, then I'm going to blow you off. If you answer the question, then you get the time.
And what is it? Okay, and I know it's off topic, but what is it you're looking for in that 30 minutes from that rep?
Getting to know somebody because as I'm extremely. This is relational business as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
So I wanted to start building that foundation of that relationship. I want to understand what they bring to the table, what niches they operate in. I want to be thinking in the back of my mind of my supply chain and how this can connect. Obviously, if it's automotive logistics, it's not going to connect. But if there's something that's there, how are they honestly? How are they differentiating themselves? I mean, basically every broker, every carrier, every shipper is delivering something from point A to point B. I hate to boil it down to that rudimentary level, but that's at the end of the day, that's it. So how do you separate yourself from the pack? How do I know you're the broker to use versus the other three who just called me? So,
Mm,
the screening process takes care of some of that, but it doesn't take care of all of that. So, you're in here, like I said, it's just like you're interviewing for a job. You're interviewing for the job to haul my freight. That's the job. And, you research the company, you start with the transparency, you start building that trust, you start building that relationship. You separate yourself from the pack. If your company has any type of a weakness, hey, I'm just really not good in Texas, that would be something I would want to listen to. That
mhm.
does not penalize you in my world because I can go find a Texas carrier. It's my job for my supply chain to network with partners that will completely take care of my supply chain, albeit they can be, national brokers, they could be niche players. It's almost like a patchwork quilt. I've got to put it together. That's
Mm,
that's how I see my job. So I'm going to be, just like you're validating customers, I'm going to be validating partners.
yes. Yeah.
So
I often had somebody say to me, it's like a puzzle. When you
yeah,
put all
that's
the
exactly
pieces
what it
together,
is.
you can
It's a
see the whole
puzzle.
picture. Yeah.
I, it's
Yeah.
it's it's a puzzle. I've literally had reps who, they came in and we sat down and talked. And I had one guy, he was itching to give his pitch, and I never let him. And I've known him about 15 years. So I just call him up and say, hey, we got this project. You need to get your butt down here so we can talk.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we figure it out. I know
Yeah.
I know that as an informed shipper, it's my job to at least have a pretty good understanding of what everybody does. What
Yes.
capabilities carrier A has, what capabilities broker B has. It's my responsibility. Now there may be some eccentricities in there that I don't know because they're a little bit further in the weeds, but high level I should know what you can do.
100%. And do you find with projects, big projects with suppliers, the scheduling of when things are going to kick off, when do you expect, KPI results to come in? Like all of those things are going to be pretty substantial in your world because if you're
Absolutely.
going to spend, yeah, so there's another scheduling aspect to it, like another layer of scheduling where it's like, okay, guys, let's run this for 30 days and then let's talk about the KPI. So we're scheduling that 3 weeks out. Like 3 weeks from now, we'll schedule a meeting for the fourth week, kind of midweek or a fifth week at the end of the week.
Right.
Again, not going too far out, but also understanding on that horizon, like what's the big goal on the horizon. So now you're layering it with your corporate plus your partners plus the daily stuff that comes in. So you got multi-facets that you're kind of operating.
Absolutely. And that scheduling is a little more static. Like,
Yes.
once we put KPIs in place to manage a project or a process, we want them in on the 10th of every month. So at the 10th of every month, it drops in the inbox and we get to look at it and see, we kind of map it. We may even have a static meeting. Say the KPIs came in on Monday, and on Thursday afternoon for 30 minutes, we meet with the partner and we go over the KPIs.
Yes.
And that would be
Yeah.
more static as well. So
Yes.
it's a little bit more static cadence on those types of things because there are deadlines, and the deadlines due
Yes.
on the next day of every month in perpetuity. So a
Yes.
little bit easier to deal with that.
Yeah, and it's also it's a great point for every sales rep that's listening to understand your schedule better because like we've seen it many times before. You know, oh well, we had an appointment scheduled for Thursday 3 weeks ago, and then the prospect just canceled on. Well, because the latter part of the week is typically booked with priorities that have to get done. If your supply chain is meeting its needs and you have everybody in place, a call with a rep is not a Thursday priority as opposed to a KPI meeting or a
Exactly.
meeting to discuss a goal. Nothing against that rep. It's just, what, like, in all honesty, this is the goal. This is the projects that are getting me to, these are the projects that are building that bridge to my goal. You're kind of right here right now. Not that it's, every one of my suppliers was here at one point. Let's plug you in next week instead of this week. And let's not take offense to it, but a lot of reps take offense to it, right? It's like, oh, well,
Right.
they kind of blew me off. And it's understanding priorities, right? Priorities get scheduled and
Right.
to get things done.
Exactly.
Like you said, you have maybe not in your agenda, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and assume that on the 10th of every month, you've set aside specific time to look at those KPIs or receive the emails and put them in an inbox where it's like maybe on the 11th you look at it and by the 13th or 14th you're having a meeting depending on when the weekend falls or that kind of thing. But if you have KPIs coming in on the 10th of every month, there's a block of time in your schedule where it's like I got to go over these because we got to make sure that the things we put in place are actually working.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll do
Mhm.
I'll do project deliverables that way as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. You've hit some amazing points today, my man. Like amazing points. That's awesome. It's awesome. Share with the audience before we let you go. Share with the audience any new big things you got coming up. Big things you're looking for CKE and share.
Not a whole lot coming from the company side. Obviously, on the personal side, we just finished the National Transportation Club's golf outing. So
Yes.
that raised some heavy duty funds for scholarships for supply chain students. So happy to
Good.
be a part of that. And then, as you well know, and probably some of your listeners know, I just finished writing another supply chain purity song, and it's my partner in Chattanooga is going to be laying down the tracks on that. So that'll be coming out soon.
Nice. Nice. Yes.
Yeah,
I always
we
love when you put those out with Michael Vincent. Yeah.
Those I think this one will be number 18 in a little over a year.
Really?
Yeah,
So
this thing
are
is.
you guys putting out an album now?
I
Yeah,
told
because
him we're going to do it.
18 songs is a perfect album, brother.
We're going to do a box CD set and autograph it for people at the mall. Yeah, so
You should at the next transportation conference. You should do that, man. That would be cool. And then all the money raised goes to charity. That'd be super cool. I mean, who doesn't love transportation songs when you're in it? Especially the way, I mean, some of the songs I've heard from you are just awesome because it reflects on our true day. You know what it is? It reminds me of like when a comedian's first kind of big stand up where it's, they're talking about all the realities that not very many people talk about, right?
Right.
And it's, you're like, yeah, damn, that's happened to me before. Oh my God, that's happened to me before. Yep, that's happened to me before. And it's shipper, broker, carrier, all of it. I love it. I love it, man.
It's funny because it's true.
Yeah. One
All right,
last question for you. Just to kind of help the audience. What do you find most challenging these days in the overall supply chain of CKE?
Supply chain has actually came back pretty well from COVID. We do have some pockets out there that are chronic, but by and large, it's come back. It's just like I said, we were talking earlier. It's the inflation is slowing the economy down, and I know that's what the Fed wanted to do, but it also impacts people who sell stuff for a living. So it's it's got to get better before it's just got to get better. I'm sorry.
I mean,
I don't even know what else to say on that. I'm just
I know.
It's just
we
crazy.
Talked about the inflation off air, and I was saying to everyone listening, I was saying to John, I go and buy 5 chicken breasts, and I can't imagine, and I'm blown away at the cost. I said I can't imagine with the amount of chicken you guys buy and the amount of food that you guys buy, what that cost has done, that inflation cost has done. Because I mean, it's crazy.
It is crazy. So hopefully we'll finish weathering this storm, and maybe 24 will be nicer to us than 23 is.
Yes, exactly. Ryan's wondering where the corgi's at.
Yeah, I'm in the office today, Ryan. Sorry, they don't let me bring the dogs.
I know, isn't that a shame? I wish you could bring the dogs everywhere.
I don't know. Three of them in the office would be a handful. So.
Oh, that would be so much fun. I mean, you just let them out of your office and just giggle.
Just everybody, let them run around.
Yeah. Let them have a good time. Well, awesome. Thanks, John. Thank you for being here, my friend. I really appreciate it. For all you watching and listening, remember you can go to saleschatterlive.com, download some of the tools that Ryan and I have put out there, and join us every day on. Try and get over to. We're noticing that I don't know if you're noticing too, John. LinkedIn is having problems with their old notifications, and I don't seem to get notifications. So we're pushing a lot of people over to Facebook these days, or YouTube these days. Because their notifications are better. So if y'all are watching, go over to Sales Chatter YouTube page, subscribe. As Ryan says, if you found value in this, which we know you did, because my man John busted some huge gold nuggets out here. Share it with everyone you know. Share it with some of your colleagues, some of your friends, even your family members, and the Amazon driver that's coming today, because we all know you ordered the packages. You ordered 3 too many packages so you can return 2, as Ryan always says. And again, Sales Chatter, the podcast that helps our goal is to help 10,000 sales reps generate $1 million GP in under 12 months and live the life they've truly wanted. John, thank you so much for being here, brother. I really appreciate it. You are always a gem of information, my man.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you guys having me. Have a good day.
You too.